Hello everyone, welcome to MES e-learning channel. In the last session we have understood what is content analysis and then after doing your content analysis how to do your concept mapping. Now your content is ready, you know what to teach, but still you need to frame your objectives, right? So in this session we are going to understand about objectives. So first of all, see, now there are goals for education, right? Now to achieve a goal, we need to have an objective. So what is an objective? It is a point or an end view of something towards which action is directed, okay? And it gives direction to the program that one wants to take. So when you have an objective which is clear, your journey or your teaching learning activity that you conduct in the class becomes clear. So educational objectives, these are the goals towards which pupil progresses. They are end results of learning stated in terms of changes in pupil behavior. In the sense, after listening to one of your class or after attending your class, what are the intended desirable behaviors you want in the students? And it is defined as desired change in behavior. Every statement of objective should describe the expected change in behavior when the objective is realized. So once your objective is realized, it should be stated in a way that it clearly mentions the desired behavior that you want to see in your student. So now these objectives can be classified into three domains, okay? So the three domains are cognitive domain, psychomotor domain and affective domain. So you have studied about these three domains, right? So cognitive domain is with respect to what you have understood, your knowledge, correct? Your knowledge, your understanding, comprehension, application, all of this will come in the cognitive domain. Whereas psychomotor domain is where you use your you do certain activity or there is a task that is performed. So for that, what do we need? We need skills, right? For psychomotor activity, we need skills. So in psychomotor domain, skills are focused on. And then in the affective domain, it's related with your feelings, emotions. So in a particular subject, the interest is developed or your attitude, change in the attitude that is brought up or appreciation towards a content that you have taught in the class. It can be a poem or anything that is to be appreciated. So all these things will come under affective domain, okay? So objectives have been classified into three domains. They are cognitive, psychomotor and affective. Under cognitive, it is KUCA in the sense knowledge, understanding, comprehension and application. So whereas in the psychomotor, it is skills because when you perform an activity or a task, skills can be inculcated in the students or it leads to the development of certain skills. And affective domain, it deals with developing interest, and changing the attitude and creating an appreciation. Moving ahead, so objectives are of two types. One is general objectives, which it is also called as non-behavioral objectives. Why it is called as non-behavioral objectives, we'll learn ahead. Okay, and then we have specific objectives, which are behavioral objectives. Okay, so as I told you, it is non-behavioral here, right? It is non-behavioral because certain actions cannot be measured or it can't be seen. So they are in general what you write. Okay, so when you frame objectives, this point of being non-behavioral will become clear in your mind. So let's start with the criteria for writing statement of general objectives. So as you saw, there are two objectives. One is general objective and then you have specific objectives. Now we are going to discuss only about general objectives. So the first criteria is that the statement of objective should contain a non-action verb. So as you saw earlier, it is non-behavioral, right? So it will have a non-action verb. Like you can see in these examples here, the pupil acquires the knowledge of bank transaction. The pupil develops an understanding of classification of plants. The pupil develops skill of computation. So the words used here are non-action verb. So the statement should be in the form of inner development or passive aspect of the mental activity which cannot be observed or measured. Like you see here, acquires. Can you see a person acquiring knowledge? Can you measure that acquiring knowledge? Or else can you see a person developing an understanding or a skill? No, right? So these things cannot be seen or these things cannot be observed. Coming to the next criteria, it is the statement of objective should indicate a worthwhile objectives. So your objective that you are stating, it should be worthwhile in the sense it should be age appropriate or class appropriate. You cannot frame an objective which is not suiting or which is not as per the level of the students in your class. Understood? Like for example, if it is related to a content which is of higher grades, you cannot expect that to be developed in the lower grade student. Here I have mentioned again an example like to prepare scientists. So this, do you think it's a worthwhile objective for primary school children? Similarly, for secondary school children, if I frame an objective like to develop a skill in drawing a line, is it worthwhile for secondary school students? No, right? So your objective that you state or the objective that you frame should be worthwhile. Moving to the third one, the objective or the statement of objective should be related to the human ability which can be developed or achieved with the help of education. So it should be something which can be achieved or which is achievable. Okay, so you cannot just randomly frame any objective. Should make sure that the particular objective that you have framed is achievable. Okay, so it should be a human ability. Like for example here, the pupil develops the power of oral expression. So oral expression, it's a human ability which can be developed through your teaching learning activity. Next, certain human abilities and qualities cannot be changed with education, right? Now, after your teaching or through education, you can bring certain changes, but not all the changes. Like for example, skin color, facial features, etc. cannot be changed. So the statement of objective should be related to what? It should be related to human ability. Fourth one, the statement of objective should mention the subject matter, that is the content that you are teaching, through which a particular ability is to be developed. Like for example, the student acquires knowledge, but what knowledge? So that part is missing here, right? So that is not correct. So the correct way of writing is the pupil acquires the knowledge of bank transactions. So what is the content that you are going to teach, or what knowledge is the student going to develop or acquire? What knowledge is the student going to acquire? What understanding is the student going to develop? That content should also be there. Okay. Now the fifth one is the statement of objective should be in the form of student's achievement. Okay, so it should be in the form of the student's achievement and not in the form of the teacher's intention. Okay, like for example, when I say to develop an understanding of classification of plants. So this is my intention. I want to develop an understanding of classification of plants in my students. So that's not the way I write my objective. It should be written as the pupil develops. So here it is in the form of your student's achievement, right? So the pupil develops an understanding of classification of plants. Clear? Now, the next one is the statement of the objective should be written in the form of achievement of every single student in your class. So, your objective is not framed for one or a group or for few students. It is for your entire class, right? So, or when you use the word like or it should be actually for every single student in your class. So, when I say just class, it becomes a very generalized term. So, it is not the right way to write your objective. Like for example, here as it is written, the class applies their knowledge and understanding in new and unfamiliar situation. So here I have generalized, I have taken a group as the class. But I should make sure that when I'm teaching, my objective should be for every single child in my class. So it is better to write it as the pupil applies his or her knowledge and understanding in new and unfamiliar situation. So when I'm saying the pupil, I'm considering every single child in my class. Clear? And the seventh one is the statement of objective should contain only one ability to be developed or achieved or modified. So your statement should not have multiple objectives or more than one objective. It should have only one objective. Like for example, the pupil acquires knowledge and applies his or her knowledge and understanding of bank transactions. So here what are the things you find? Acquires and applies, right? So there are two non-action verbs coming up, and even so this is not the right way to write. So the correct way of writing is the pupil acquires the knowledge of bank transactions, and then the next one, which is the pupil applies his or her knowledge and understanding of bank transactions in new and unfamiliar situation. Okay? So knowledge, understanding and application comes differently. Okay, so now we have understood the criteria that we need to keep in our mind while writing or while framing your general objectives. So what were they? So your objectives should be non-behavioral, and then it should be worthwhile, it should be connected with the content that you are teaching in the class, it should develop a human ability, and it should be written in the form of students' learning and not teacher's intention, right? And the last one is you should develop one ability at a time. So this is clear? Now see, when you are writing your objectives in science, maths, social sciences and grammar, you will have knowledge, understanding, application and skill in that. Okay, so here the general objective will start with the pupil acquires knowledge of the content that you are teaching. The pupil develops an understanding of the content that you are teaching, and the pupil applies his or her knowledge and understanding in new and unfamiliar situation, which is an application, and the pupil develops skill. And now it can be any skill that you are trying to develop through that particular teaching learning activity that you will be conducting in your classroom. And now this is for languages, to be very specific. Now here it is like prose, poem, grammar and composition. So when it's a prose, you will have knowledge there. Then you will have comprehension, because after a poem is taught, this child should be able to comprehend and give you information about that or understand information about that. So knowledge, comprehension and expression, because there will be recitation in that, right? Same way in poem, okay? In prose it is again knowledge, comprehension and expression, where there is reading or anything that the child expresses after understanding a particular prose. Okay, so in prose and poem you have knowledge, comprehension and expression, and in poem with that there is appreciation also added on. And for grammar it is same like maths, so it is knowledge, understanding, application and skill. And for composition also it is knowledge, understanding, application and skill. So these are the things that you will keep in mind when you will frame your objectives in your respective subjects. Okay, so in this session we have understood what is objectives. We understood there are two types of objectives, which is general objectives and specific objectives, and we have discussed and understood how to write general objectives. Okay, so in the next session we'll understand how to write specific objectives. So thank you for listening and have a good day.